Hello, everybody. My name is Nathan Byrd, founder of Acquisition IQ Podcast, Acquisition IQ, the brand, and as well, Acquisition Conference or AquaCon coming to Salt Lake City on September 3rd. And I'm joined here with a seasoned entrepreneur as well as a consultant, Dan Mirgon. I'm going to read your bio here. Dan has helped founders build healthy companies that are easy to run and more valuable when it's time to sell. With over 4 decades of experience, he guides business owners through strategic, focused, value growth, and exit planning that aligns life, wealth, and legacy. Dan's clients don't just get higher multiples, they build teams with lower turnover, high morale, and systems buyers actually want. Whether you're prepping to sell or just getting serious about scale, Dan brings the clarity and coaching to help you lead with purpose and exit on your terms.
Wow, I have to live up to that one. That's good.
Yeah. Well, look, we're excited to have you on this podcast, and it's our mission to continue to bring value for those business owners out there, both that are looking for an acquisition as well as those that are wanting to prep for a maximal sale. But I would like to start first, where have you been and how did you get to this level of, the consulting portion of where you're at today?
First, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
It's again a joy to be together and doing this. I started in 1982 in the financial advice business. All of my clientele were business owners. We were doing executive benefits predominantly. And I started seeing through that process dysfunction. It's glaring when they can't pull numbers together. They can't keep their team or things like that. And so I became a business coach, financial consultant at the same time. And over the last 43 years now, I've had the opportunity to start 5 of my own companies. I've raised capital for them. I've sold several of them. I've staffed them. I've scaled them. But on top of that, I've also had the privilege of being able to consult with and advise close to 300 companies across the country now. And there are some common themes, as you might suspect, about what it takes to be successful. And you've probably heard me say this in other settings, but you got to get past the fads, the trends, the celebrity worship, and your Uncle Fred's advice. And you actually have to sit down with a sheet of paper and say, okay, what is my strategy? Because too many people are spending all their time chasing tactics without a strategy behind it. And I kind of, we think about strategy statements or vision statements and mission statements as, things we learned in the business class that we should format this way and put on the wall here, right? It's a whole lot more than that, and we all know it. I think of strategy as the vision and the plan as the mission. So if you don't know what your strategy is, what am I trying to accomplish here? I'm trying to win the war. How are you going to do that? Here's my plan to do that, right? You're going to end up piecing together things, and you'll end up just frustrating your team. You'll frustrate yourself. You may go through the divorce. You may go through, all kinds of issues that were preventable if you sat down first and said, ladies and gentlemen, this is a business. Like Vince Lombardi did with the football, right? What are we trying to accomplish here? Who are we supposed to be?
When you work with businesses, what's the very first thing that you typically address in order to begin that maximal value prep for not just a sell, but maximal value inside of a company?
I can say this now when I didn't know this a bunch of years ago, but I want to know the individual. I work with the CEO, the owner, the person who's put his financial future, health and wealth and, mentality on the line. I want to know what drives them. What are their core components? Are they living to their own ethos, right? And if they're not, why not? Because that's going to have a ripple effect throughout the business. And if I had the opportunity to go to work at a university in the fundraising space a bunch of years ago. One of the things they put me through was the Gallup StrengthsFinder assessment. If you have never taken it, you need to, because that's one of the things we do. They read the book, they take the assessment, and they come out with these are the ingredients that bake into the cake to make Dan, right? We also put them through what's called a driving forces assessment, the DISC driving forces. And when you blend all those three together, now you know why I do what I do, what drives me to do that versus that. How do I communicate? What's my natural style, right? And when you start unpacking some of those pieces and you start kind of post-morteming some of the junk they've gone through, you can see why the problems are there. When they then become aware of them, and we've been an executive coach for a long time, so we work on this idea of identify the challenges, figure out the commitment, work the commitment, right? So when we can see that there are areas in the executive where they're still Malcolm, they're still, the guy who we've all read E-Myth Revisited, right? And so we were great at being a technician. We decided we're done working for this guy, and we started it. And now I got mom doing the books and cousin Eddie doing the sales, 14 people on the block doing our production, and I'm in business, right? I'm a business owner. That mentality has to change over time, and we need to understand why we hang on to that too long. We see that a lot. Pride, arrogant, not knowing what they don't know. It's a serious problem.
What I've seen with business owners is at first, and I'm speaking from personal experience, but business owners, you can do every aspect of what you have had to do in the business in the past. But then you start to look at things more from an objective point of view, which is then just systems. Once you then look at systems that you've created or the company has forced you to create, because that's what happens a lot of times is the company tells you what it needs, and then you just follow what the company needs to increase.
Most of the time.
And so I guess what I'm saying is the systematic approach to every standard operating procedure and every single task list that's created within the organization, if you look at it from an objective point of view, then you start to remove your own emotion because it's the system that really helps, produce the results that you're looking for.
If you're running your business today with an end perspective, someday I'm going to sell this thing and somebody's going to want to look at how it runs, what it takes to keep it going. Are the people ready for the transition to the next owner? I'm going to be more likely to focus on you instead of the other 50 opportunities on my table in the conference room at my, brokerage firm or M&A firm or private equity group. So a lot of it has to do, Nathan, with really just allowing yourselves the humility to sit down and say, okay, I got us here. I got us from startup to survival. We can survive. I'm trying to be a significant company and scale it. Am I doing that? For what reason? And if I scale it to a place where I can actually sell it, is it valuable to a buyer? Or am I just trying to bail from my frustration? My wife wants us to do this, and I got to get rid of this business and make a bunch of money for that to happen. Unfortunately, that's the scenario that I run into a lot, where the M&A people, the brokers, private equity people will send people to us because they thought they were ready to sell when what they were expressing was their emotion to get out instead of the mathematical metric that proves that they're worth buying by a buyer. So if your if your largest competitor were to walk into your office tomorrow and say, I want to buy your company, here's an offer. Do you have a credible way to respectfully, might end up selling to him someday, but respectfully say, I appreciate the offer, but that's not the number we work with, and here's why we think we're worth more. If you can't do that, you're guessing. And that guess bleeds over into your personal financial planning. 90% of the business owners that you're going to talk to want to fund a majority of their retirement with the sale of their business. And they get the value of their business typically from the CPA. And the CPA gives you a low EBITDA or SDE because he's padded the expenses so that you don't pay the taxes and supposedly stay out of jail. The problem is the buyer's not going to want to pay all those extra expenses. And so you have to, when you start your business, think about it as an asset that you're going to grow, polish, and sell, and then maybe wash, rinse, and repeat, right? Do it again. That make any sense?
As one who's been in the trances, multiple times here with, you said over hundreds of companies, share with me one thing that you see in a healthy business as opposed to an unhealthy business.
Unhealthy is the easiest. Arrogance, egotism, blind spots to the fact that your team isn't following you. I have this vision and you didn't engage them, and they're over here and you're over here. That's a huge problem. When it works, you've got an operating system for the management team. Everybody's doing things the same way. You've codified all your SOPs. You know what you're doing, and you're celebrating the wins all the way along, and everybody gets a piece of the win. That means you're a humble servant warrior. You're not Napoleon, okay? Humble in that you know you can't do this by yourself. Servant, you're there to serve your people, your investors, the clients, and your own personal needs. But you're a warrior in that you're going to fight for what this company needs to be healthy for now and for the future. Too many, I think about the business and they look out the windshield at the end of the car. They don't think down the road. Most of our executive coaching work over the last 20 or 25 years has been trying to help people stop thinking like that busy manager and start thinking like a CEO. Jack Welch at General Electric used to walk through the halls all the time, and anybody bring him an issue, his first question is, how does that help us fulfill our vision? It wasn't the mission statement posted on the wall behind the receptionist. That's useless unless the people own it.
True.
Okay?
Yeah. Somebody has to internalize and then also make that theirs.
So in the companies that get it, they've got that operating system. They're willing to discipline themselves. They're willing to mature the organization from mom doing the books to professional accounting, et cetera, and all the way down that list. And they're willing to look at it as we're working together to accomplish this big vision. And you review the vision and you make sure it's still relevant and that you're making the appropriate progress all the way along. And people, when they see that as leaders and as workers, they're excited because this is a fun company to work in.
I think it's difficult to quantify those intangibles at times within an organization because you can still have a successful your bottom line could, in essence, be almost inflated, and then all of a sudden it's the long-term ramifications of an unhealthy culture that then will continue to eat, and then eventually just will fall off.
Yeah.
What are ways that you have found that you've been able to, in essence, quantify, though, a healthy culture that is built for long-term sustainability?
Well, part of our sellability assessment that we ask companies to take does that. But I think a lot of it starts with the thinking about what are we trying to do. We all know the name Patrick Lencioni. Wrote a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, right? But one of his other books, and he's got many, is called The Advantage. And in that book, he kind of outlines this idea that every company has two sides to it, the smart side and the healthy side. And the smart side includes all the things we learn in business school, taxes, accounting, all that stuff. Got to have it. I'm not saying don't have it, but the healthy side is about how do you bring in the right people, help them onboard correctly? How do you give them a sense of their shared value and place in the mission fulfillment, right? 80% of your success comes from that intangible personal component. So to do that, you have to be able to measure people. Sometimes you do Net Promoter Score internally. Sometimes you do an executive 360 to determine what the leadership team really thinks about the leader, not from a remedial, let's get rid of the guy unless that's warranted, but how do we help him get his stuff better, right?
Share with the audience some of the tactics that you use to be able to do that. You just listed 2 specific tools, I think.
Yeah.
Can you explain maybe just tactfully on how one who's running a company wants to have a better culture with those intangibles?
If that's the leading question, how do I get my culture better? I want to find out why they're leaving. And I might go to some of the ex-employees confidentially and just say, tell me why you're over here when you were here, right? But an executive 360 really has a lot to do with giving the leadership team and the people supporting that visionary freedom and safety to let some of the emotions that maybe have pent up out and say without using words that will get back to the owner exactly what needs to be fixed. And if you have, let's say you've got 10 people and you hear from 6 of them the same recurring issue, that's my job as the coach to come back and say, you don't get to know who these people are, but this is the body of what they laid out, which brings us back to this for you. How do we help you? First of all, do you see this as a real problem? Yeah. Okay. What are we going to do to fix it? Because you've got great people out here who want to help and support you. But if you keep throwing them firebombs, lose them all.
Yeah.
You'll never sell this thing. Because when they do due diligence, who do you think they're going to talk to?
All the employees.
Exactly. Right?
Or leadership within specific
teams. And they're going
to
do it in a way that, I mean, they can sniff out BS just like the rest of us can.
Yeah, and it's interesting because all of this just culminates into the end number for a business that is then just transferred to another owner.
Yeah, and you touched on that earlier. It's not just the financial piece that a buyer is buying. There's 4 other components that we call intangible capital. Are your vendor and relationships solid? Customers, staff, and systems. So when we have all those 4 plus great
vendor, customers, staff, and systems.
Right. When you have those pieces working well, you have a healthy company. And sometimes we start working on this stuff and things get better and the guy decides he doesn't want to sell it. Because all of a sudden it's now not that albatross around his neck on Monday morning. It's a fun place to show up. As the value goes up, the fun goes up. Okay.
That's interesting. I know that there are so many different factors to people that are wanting to exit their business, as you've probably seen. And a lot of times, is it just the number that they're looking for to get out? Or what are some of the factors that you've seen actually for people to want to exit a business?
I think the number is the one that gets the most press. I need this big check so I can go off and do the next thing, whatever the next thing is. And I don't want to minimize that at all, but there are an awful lot of altruistic folk out there who want to go help other people. They want to start a foundation. They want to work in nonprofits, or they want to go give the little guy in their community a hand up by partnering with them. The other concerns are how's this going to impact this team of people that I love? They love me, right? I feel guilty selling the business because I'm not going to be here to lead them anymore. That's a very real concern. Nonetheless, sometimes the company needs new leadership for it to get to the next plateau. And so there are times when you have to say, your tenure is done here. These people will be fine. You've got a great culture. You've codified everything so they know how to read the blueprint. Go do something next. And next is the question that most people don't have an answer to. I asked a doctor, I said, what are you going to do? When you're done, what are you going to do Monday morning, the week after you've sold your business? And he goes, no idea. Play more golf. Yeah. Well, okay, golf's a good thing, but you can only add, 10, 15 hours more a week to golf. And you still have how much time left over? You still have to be relevant.
What have you seen with people that have exited a company? I mean, because there may be that valley, there's probably a valley that one goes through and searching for a new identity. Have you seen that happen with people?
Yeah.
And then also, what are some of the advice that you would give to those that are searching for a new identity, but yet maybe even prepping for an exit so then they can know, hey, listen, it's not just the business that I've created. There's more to life.
I think part of what we need to understand is, as the business owner, I have to be able to emotionally and psychologically separate myself from the business and see it as a tool to accomplish what. And it's that undefined what that drives people crazy after they've sold their business. So I tell people all the time, take a yellow pad and a pen and go sit on a rock somewhere, leave your phone in the car, and start asking yourself the hard questions. What do I want? What don't I want? And date that, and next month go do it again. And next month they'll go do it again. And pretty soon what happens is you pull out the last 2 months and you're going, I don't want that anymore, but I still want that. So you circle it, right? And you see a recurring theme, and you start seeing from you your own answer to the question of, what am I supposed to be doing?
That's valuable, guys. If you want to, I would challenge you to do that. And it really doesn't matter what stage of business you're in.
No.
Because you've got to have that engine, and just like what you were saying, and what propels our actions forward, that's the fuel and that's the engine, and our engine in essence is our purpose. And then our tasks are the fuel, so.
Well, back to the vision mission issue. Without the vision, you don't build an engine. What am I trying to accomplish? So if we can answer the question, what am I going to do Monday morning after I've sold my business, before I get there, the problem with us is, particularly if it's an age range like late 60s, 70s, whatever, they're not going to go off and start another company. What they're going to do is go buy the sailboat, build the cabin, or go on that, Airstream trip, whatever they're doing. And that's great. But they still have to have some sense of importance and value. So you need to pre-think what that looks like. Run the scenario when you're sitting on the rock somewhere saying, okay, I'm used to working 60 hours a week, but if I add 4 more rounds of golf, that's going to take 12 hours off the 60, so I have 48 hours left. What am I going to do? Right? Oh, I volunteer at the soup kitchen. Okay, that's another 5 hours. Okay, you're still sitting here diagnosing your sense of what I'm going to do. And the honey-do list may actually end at some point at home, and now you got to go off and do something. And it's joked about that the wife someday says, well, I wanted you home, but I didn't want you home every day, right? Go do something. And they'll push you out to do something. So volunteering, going to SCORE or SBDC and being an advisor, there's a lot of different ways to help people. But don't sit there and eat soap, eat bonbons and watch soap operas and think that you're living a life.
Yeah.
That's bad news.
Yeah, it's difficult, and I had a friend, he sold his company, he's like 45, and he was literally, it seemed like it was a midlife crisis that he was having. And he was like, I have been on the road. I've been constantly building for the last 20 years. And I don't know what is next. Well, and it was interesting, just hearing this conversation.
There's a book, I think it's called Exit Strategy. Sherry Walling, PhD, and her husband, I think his name is Rob. Rob had an IT company that got picked up and sold and made some really pretty good money. But Sherry, as the psychology major, works with business owners who are exiting. And she watched her husband go through all this stuff of emotional highs and lows and battles and whatever. And he ultimately figured out how to do micro purchases. He puts together groups of people who buy, hundreds of little companies. They're doing fine. but they outline in this book the emotional battle that you deal with because you're no longer the guy who writes the check and signs the check, right? You shouldn't have been that in the first place, later on in the career of the business, but you need to be able to keep your perspective on what you're going to be doing next. And we get so busy running this one, your 40 or 45-year-old guy needs to take some time and sit down and say, okay, I've got the resources that I didn't have the first round. How can I impact more people? Because it sounds like he's a guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guys are built to conquer. We're there to win the battle. Without battle, we just atrophy and shrivel up, right? So find a battle that's worthy of his personal joy, fulfillment, not selfish, but what does it make? What makes him feel good about being on the planet? And go do that.
Man, this is good. You're joined here with Dan Mirgon with Mirgon Consulting, and he's an executive leadership coach. He's been working with businesses, hundreds now, like you said. And then also you have a certification in exit planning. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you understand really the intricacies within businesses that create value upon, not just upon the exit, but really create value within the company. And that's what I've realized too. It's not only about an exit that one is going to be doing the research for to be able to build it. Because like you said, you could get to the point of your business where you don't really need to sell it, but yet you've put in place specific operators that mitigate your responsibility as the business owner, but yet you can still be a part.
Right.
Can you share with us a little bit deeper in that specific scenario? Because we'll have some people that'll watch this and they're curious. I want to exit, but maybe not 100%. How do I structure that deal?
Okay. That one, in other words, I want to sell off a chunk of the business.
Yeah.
I still want to have some ownership role, but I don't want to be responsible for the day-to-day anymore.
Yep.
I think the best advice I can give you is to get out of the day-to-day anyway, regardless of the sale. In other words, build your structure so that the business will run without you. You may want to sell the whole thing. You may not want to sell the whole. You may only want to sell a portion, but by and large, I would think if you built it and it's healthy enough to run on its own, my thinking is think like you're never going to show up there again. You might hang on to some equity in the deal, but that CEO's running it. That equity group's responsible. You're just there to take the value later, right? So that you can go do something else. So it goes back to our prior conversation of knowing what you, or at least having a picture of what you could be doing if you had the financial resources and the time to do it. Because it's kind of like we're doing plateaus, right? I got it. I sold it. Okay, now I can go over here and do something, or I can go here and do something, or I can go build another one, or I can build 50. Yeah, walling, right?
Yeah, that's good. Well, today, we just wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the understandings of, leadership with an organization, cultural creation, because at the end of the day, that creates the most value in an entity. That then when you get to the very end, your numbers should be better based on your discipline inside of your company because you've created all these systems and KPIs, and the company culture wants to align themselves with a grandeur vision that's bigger than just the bottom line. But the bottom line is a byproduct of a healthy culture.
Absolutely.
Which I would see, and I've interviewed others that they've seen tremendous upside. Our last interview with Lee Benson, he sold his aerospace company for 9 figures, and he was very, very focused on culture and making sure that everyone was happy within his organization.
Yeah.
And he was extremely disciplined in the way that he did that, to having an, on-site gym, to understanding employee satisfaction and just getting to know every single person. And, that was, like you were saying, leadership it stems, or the health of the culture stems only from really the leadership down. You see that time and time again. But then you have to empower others to be leaders within the organization as well, and yeah.
That's why they call it a leadership team. So I think, to be clear on what I think we see most often, is what's called a roll-up. So I own 100% of this company, and now I want somebody to buy me, who's in my industry, and roll me up into their bigger firm, and I will take a piece of this new money, this money that they just gave me, and buy a piece of that new company that they just built, and hang on to that for 5 to 10 years. That way, I'm still an owner. I'm not part of the management team, and I still get the equity bump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you have.
I think that's just the most straightforward way to do it. There's a lot of other iterations of that.
Yeah,
but I think that's probably the best answer.
Because there's many people, they build the company for a little while, and then they maybe not want a full exit immediately. Obviously, with somebody who has to stay on for a little while because that's a part of their term sheet, 2-3 years, they got to have an earn out, and if they have to go through that process.
But you're talking about before even that kind of thinking.
Yeah, because sometimes you're the founder and you want to continue to be still on, but yet you don't have to make the decisions day to day.
Well, sometimes a private equity company will come in and buy a portion of the company to infuse capital so that you can take the vision and put it on steroids. That's one way to do that.
That's good.
And you're not 100% owner anymore. Maybe there's a buyback at some point of your share. The other is to bring in partners if you choose to do that. Personal experience, partners are sticky and messy, but if you can make it work, go for it.
Yeah.
But I think, I'm one of those guys that I'd rather own the whole thing than none of it. And it's hard for me to really think about bringing in someone who's going to then challenge or push
Shift
against.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But maybe I need that sometimes as an owner. I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on the individual.
It's like, it's any relationship that we're a part of. It's a continual refinement, and, we're continually, even in marriage, you're in a relationship. You almost look at yourself in the mirror from your significant other that is not like constantly berating you in a negative way. It's just a matter of like, oh, well, maybe I do need to look into that specific area of my life. And even as a business owner, I think we all need to be a little bit more open as we continue to grow our legacies. And, I really enjoy this conversation, talking more about culture, leadership, within an organization, because at the end of the day, we all know this, is the organization is only as good as its leaders. And we were just touching on that a second ago. It's a leadership team. There's every element inside of, each specific category and responsibility and teams within. Every one of them need to feel empowered to do the best that they can inside of whatever they're.
And that's the leader's responsibility to make happen.
True.
So if I hire you to be responsible for this multi-million-dollar division of my company, I better know that I like you, that you have a real ownership role in our vision and the outcome of that vision. And you and I need to be real close when it comes to, build a level of trust that's real high, so that if you're having a challenge, you feel confident and comfortable to bring it to me. I'm still going to have you fix it because that's your job, but you need that outlet. I need to make that environment work.
Well, guys, this is, again, we've been here sitting with Dan Mirgon with MirgonConsulting.com. You can take a look at his website. I mean, he's been helping companies over hundreds now, like you were saying, both with leadership, executive coaching, and then also you have your exit planning certification. So you understand the intricacies of value creation within a company, and then, exit process for maximal value. So I think that'll be really helpful for you guys being able to look up Dan. He's also a founding member of the Acquisition IQ Network. For that, we do thank you, and the value that you're able to provide the group members, but also help us build the Acquisition IQ Network. So we're looking forward to that. Is there any lasting, kind of words of wisdom that you would have for those founders out there that, are going to be potentially exiting a company one day?
No, there's where do you start, right?
Yeah.
Sit down with the yellow pad, turn off the phone, get away from distraction, and ask yourself the hard questions that you've maybe been putting off.
That's good.
Going from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3, those transitions, from startup to survival and then significance. What does significance really mean? Is it all money, or is it impact and money, or how many adjectives can you put in there to know that you're doing what you feel called to do with your business? If you do that semi-regularly, once a year, go on your personal retreat, whatever you need to do, get away from the phone, get away from internet, get away from somebody pulling from you, and be able to put it down on paper. The tactile writing it down has a lot of value.
Yep.
And then just keep those notes, man. Review them.
Yeah, I like what you said earlier today. You write 5, remove 1 or 2, highlight the 3.
The one that stands out, it's clear.
And then you just do that over month. And then, now you're seeing an average.
Mm-hmm.
And that average is continually whittling away at what is most important. Brian Tracy, The Frog, it's a great book. He says, well, you list out this task list, next day, this task list. You just take the one that you didn't finish, you put it onto the task list that you have to get done.
Right.
Super, super simple. But then you get more stuff done that you really wanted to get done. But yeah, again, thank you so much, guys, for taking a look at this podcast. It's really just that today's was a high-level overview of, in essence, leadership culture, values within a company, and how that could greatly impact your overall valuation upon your potential exit. So if you liked today's episode, feel free to subscribe as well as comment below what you'd like to hear next for our upcoming podcasts. As well, if you want to learn more about the Acquisition IQ network and Acquisition IQ brand, just go to acquisitioniq.co. And then also, if you want to be in attendance at our upcoming conference in Salt Lake City on September 3rd, 2025, make sure to go to aquacon.live. We look forward to seeing you in the room.
Yes.